I kicked my husband and his manipulative girlfriend out after he put her up at our house and wanted to sleep in the same room with her. I am 28. My husband is 30. We have been married for 4 years, got married after 3 years of relationship. Everything in our relationship was fine except for one thing, his close bond with his best friend. His best friend, as he calls her, is his neighbor from childhood. They've always been together, and I'll call her Fiona. Fiona and my husband went to the same kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high schools. They even went to the same college, though to different faculties. They've been inseparable since childhood, and I can't even forget about it, because they keep remembering it whenever they get the chance. They only broke up when they started working, and that's when I met my husband. Fiona once told me that I was the third most important woman in my husband's life. First his mother, second her, and then me. She said it as if she was joking, but I'm sure she really thinks so. To be honest, I always thought that she didn't like me and perceived me as a rival. When my husband and I first started dating, he introduced her to me as his older friend, and I tried to be nice to her, but she immediately started mocking me about how much makeup I was wearing and said I didn't need to impress her. This happened over and over again, and she was constantly making jokes about my makeup, clothes, and other things. There were also jokes in the form of compliments, after which I felt insecure. One time she told me straight out that her husband has a lot of dumb blondes, and I'm a blonde. I think you've already figured out who I'm dealing with. I tried to talk to my husband about this several times before marriage. I said that I had a bad feeling about Fiona, but he always waved me off and insisted that I would get used to her over time, that not everyone liked her because she never filtered her market and was too straightforward for most women. Probably the fact that my husband was putting others down to make her look good should have alerted me. But, to be honest, it seemed like a small thing to me then compared to the fact that I could be with him. After all, he was perfect in everything else. He was exactly the man I dreamed of, smart and funny, charming. And I was willing to put up with Fiona because I really wanted to be with him, and he always made it clear to me that he loved me. So everything was fine. Over time, I stopped paying attention to Fiona and didn't let her hurt me. And when she got a boyfriend, it got even better, because she stopped hitting on me for no reason. 4 years ago, Fiona met Eddie through a dating app, and a year later they got engaged. To say that she had lost her head over him was an understatement, and it looked like he was in love with her too. Despite their obvious affection for each other, I still think that a year is not enough to really get to know a person, and they haven't lived together that long to even think about marriage. But Fiona and I aren't friends, and I knew if I tried to tell her anything about it, she'd make a scene, so I just kept quiet. I told my husband about this, hoping that he would gently push her to a sensible decision. But he only admired how great it was that he and Fiona got engaged almost at the same time and, perhaps, will have a wedding at the same time. They even discussed the idea of a joint wedding, but I stopped it at an early stage, saying that Fiona and I had two different views on everything, and fortunately, she did not insist. She married Eddie about a month after our wedding, and everything was fine until recently. 5 months ago, Fiona confessed to my husband that she couldn't get pregnant. She and Eddie were going to get tested, as they had been trying unsuccessfully for almost 6 months. Unfortunately, it turned out that Fiona was infertile, and from that moment on, their marriage began to fall apart. And even though they tried to go to a family therapist, it didn't help her because Eddie filed for divorce anyway. He didn't want to be a woman with whom he couldn't have children, and he wasn't going to waste his life in a childless marriage. It was mean and disgusting of him, and to be honest, I felt sorry for Fiona. She began to visit us much more often than before, and I tolerated it because I understood that it was very difficult for her now, and my husband, apparently, was her only true friend. I couldn't get annoyed with her frequent visits, because every time she came to us, she just cried, and her husband tried to comfort her. It was almost impossible to get mad at someone who was already going through such a horror, because I knew that she really loved Eddie. Then the divorce process and negotiations on the division of property began. They had to see each other a lot, and it turned out to be even more difficult for her. She began to despair completely. Then my husband asked me if she could stay with us for a while until she felt better, because according to her, next to him, she allegedly began to feel normal again. It was almost 2 weeks ago, and as soon as I let her into my house, I immediately regretted it. She criticized literally everything I did, and she got away with it. She was depressed. She didn't like me, yes. She didn't like the way our house was furnished. She didn't like my series. In the end, we had to do everything according to her rules, because in my husband's opinion, she needed it now. I've said more than once that I want Fiona to leave, and that if she doesn't like everything, let her go back to live with her parents. But he begged me to let her stay because he was afraid she might do something stupid to herself if we kicked her out in such a vulnerable state. That's why I didn't tell her anything. I didn't want it to be on my conscience later. But the day before yesterday, I still had to kick them both out because they had crossed all boundaries. When I returned home from work, I saw that my husband had moved some of his belongings from our bedroom to the guest room where Fiona lived. He came early on purpose to arrange it all. When I arrived, he and Fiona were still moving his things into that room. I was shocked and asked my husband to talk in private, but he said we could talk right in front of Thean. To be honest, she looked happy for the first time in weeks. I asked why he was moving into the guest room, and he calmly replied that he would now share a room with Fiona, and she just froze for a few seconds. When I asked what the hell was going on here, he said that Fiona had been having panic attacks for several days in a row, and she needed someone to comfort her at night when she woke up in a panic because of the divorce. I immediately told him that it was out of the question, and that he was crazy if he thought I was going to figure it out. But he once again used his favorite excuse about Fiona. She's like a sister to him, and I have nothing to worry about. Both of them stood and smiled at me, as if with that smile they could make everything that was happening normal and acceptable. I was so angry and disappointed that I wanted to punch them both. But instead, my rage reached such a level that I decided to act differently. I smiled back at them and said that I understood them perfectly, and that everything was absolutely normal for me. My husband even dared to say that he was sure that I would understand everything, and they continued to arrange the room. Meanwhile, I returned to our bedroom and took out the documents of the house. My father gave me this house when I got my first job, and it's designed just for me. That is, legally, the house belongs to me. When I found the papers, I returned to the guest room and asked very nicely if they had finished unpacking. When they said yes, I replied that they would have to pack up because very soon they would be on the street, where they could play happy family as much as they wanted. My husband couldn't figure out what was going on for a few seconds until I showed the documents and said that the house was mine and that I was no longer going to tolerate this in my own house and let them humiliate me like that. He tried to laugh it off, thinking I was joking, but when he realized I wasn't laughing, he said I was being absurd and couldn't just kick them out. I replied that I could and that I was already doing it, so it was pointless to argue with me. I said that he would make me sick, and Thean would make me even more sick, because now she is a cross between hysterical and a winner, and this is terribly annoying. Fiona, of course, burst into tears again, and my husband defended her and accused me of always being jealous of her because I wasn't sure of myself. I didn't even deny it because it's true I really am, but the reason wasn't me, but their perverted relationship. I told them that if they couldn't live without each other, then they shouldn't try to start relationships with other people and ruin their lives the way they ruined mine. After that, a fierce quarrel began, but in the end they still left. My husband said he felt insulted because he loved me, but it wasn't enough for me anyway. Fiona did not stop crying and finally accused me of envy and cruelty. I didn't answer her. I didn't have time to argue with them anymore. I just wanted them to disappear. I thought all my problems would be over as soon as they were gone, but apparently I was wrong. Because as soon as I kicked them out, our mutual friends, the ones who had never been interested in our marriages before, started writing to me that I was making a big deal out of a molehill. In their opinion, my husband just wanted to support Fiona because panic attacks are serious, and instead of showing sympathy, I turned everything into a drama and reduced it to my complexes. I immediately realized that he had put them up to it, because all the messages were carbon copies. I tried to ignore them, but then he connected his family as well. As one, they started saying that I was doing a terrible thing by kicking them out when Fiona was going through such a difficult period. They said I didn't have a heart, that I didn't deserve a husband like him. You see, it was clear from the very beginning that I wasn't his match. And somewhere deep inside, I knew it myself. That's why I felt threatened by Fiona. I realized that it was useless to argue with them and just blocked everyone for the sake of my own peace of mind. None of these people tried to understand how I felt. They didn't care. They were only worried about their husband and about Thean and about how they felt. It seemed to me that blocking would solve the problem, and I was about to file for divorce. But my husband got in touch again from another number and said he was still ready to come back to me if I apologized. In this message, he repeated again that he had always considered Fiona to be the sister he had never had, and that he had never had romantic feelings for her, which means I misunderstood everything. He said that he cares about her and even loves her, but this is platonic brotherly love, not the one he feels for me. He said that the thought of living his life without me was killing him, that he had made a mistake by leaving then. But he also believed that I had overreacted and misunderstood everything. He asked me to think about everything with a cool head and calmly weigh the consequences of my actions, because they want me to do something stupid that I will regret all my life. He's ready to come back and restore our relationship if we both apologize to each other for misunderstanding. I really don't know how to react to this, because I don't think I went overboard. Well, now I'm not even sure if it's right to divorce him at all, because he keeps insisting that Fiona is like a sister to him. To be honest, this message knocked me out of my rut, and now I'm not even sure if it's worth going through with it. I really did something wrong when I kicked my husband out after he said he wanted to sleep in the same room with his childhood friend to comfort her during nighttime panic attacks. So, before we continue and move on to the update, I suggest you write your opinion on this issue in the comments. Personally, I think that the author did absolutely the right thing, and it doesn't matter what kind of relationship her husband and this friend have. I mean, whether they sleep together and have a romantic relationship or a sibling relationship, it just doesn't matter at all, because it's not normal anyway. If they have a relationship like with a brother and sister, it's also a complete trash. It's some kind of mental disorder, as far as I'm concerned. This is a situation in general. It reminded me of the 2003 film The Dreamer. If you haven't watched it, you can take a look. There, the guy met his brother and sister, who had a very strange relationship. They didn't seem to sleep together, but nevertheless they allowed themselves much more than brother and sister allow. We are stuck in some kind of childhood period, being already fully grown people. And it all ends with the fact that the hero just can't stand it anymore and leaves, because these guys are starting to create a complete game, putting their lives in danger. And not some kind of light, but a direct mortal danger. So yes, it's absolutely not worth leaving such a husband if he allows himself to do so. Well, now let's continue. Update 1. Well, it looks like I was really blind. The comments on my first post opened my eyes because I realized that I had just let my guard down, and now my marriage is ruined. I should have stopped his friendship with Thean at the very beginning, even if we had broken up then, but it would have been worth it, because at least then I wouldn't have to get divorced because of her now. I don't understand at all how things could have gone so far with them. I guess I just loved him too much. Maybe I still do. That's why I've been seriously thinking about forgiveness and getting back together. In my defense, he knows how to speak beautifully and has been trying to tell me for years that their friendship with Thean is absolutely fine, and my insecurity is my problem. He was constantly gaslighting me, convincing me that I was wrong. It was years of manipulation, and eventually he brought me to a boiling point when he decided to sleep in the same room with her. That was the last straw. My parents support me and believe that I'm doing the right thing by filing for divorce. After this, it is impossible to restore the marriage. He can't just take back his words, and I don't think he'll break off the relationship with Thean for me. It's been a couple of days now, and I still haven't answered him. I don't even know where they are right now, and to be honest, I don't want to know, because I definitely won't like any of the options. I deserve a man who will put me first, and my husband has never done that. I was a complete fool. I hope that one day he will put me above Fiona, but now I understand that this will not happen, and it's better for us to separate. I have filed for divorce, and I hope the documents will be handed over to him in the next few days. Thanks again to everyone who wrote comments and helped me realize what a fool I was. I really needed to hear that. Update the second one. My husband was handed the documents a week ago, and he decided not to dispute the divorce. It would seem that if he is not going to fight for marriage in court, Then he has nothing more to talk about with me. But he came to me last night to tell me how disappointed he was that I was leaving him because of such a small thing. I wasn't expecting his visit at all, especially after she had eaten him and kicked them both out. But he said he needed to pick up some things, and I had to let him in. When he finished packing, he sat down across from me on the couch and said he wanted to talk. I didn't say anything, just waited for him to say something. He said he wouldn't dispute the divorce if I insisted on it, but he wanted me to know in his opinion that I was making a mistake. He said that he had always loved only me, and he was offended by the fact that I even thought that he could cheat on me, and especially with Fiona. He said that they were living with his parents now, and everyone in the family was terribly upset about my decision to leave because of such stupidity. After my mother-in-law handed him the documents, she allegedly even wanted to talk to me herself, but he stopped her because he respects my choice and does not want to put pressure on me through relatives. It seemed a little hypocritical to me, considering that it was this man who encouraged all my friends and family to flood me with messages, begging me to take him back, calling me a terrible, heartless person, and other shit after I kicked him out. I couldn't resist reminding him about it, and he looked nervous. He began to deny his involvement. He said that everyone wrote to me from the bottom of their hearts, and he had nothing to do with it at all, but I'm a spring idiot. I showed him the same messages from our mutual friends, and they were all carbon copies. It was obvious that someone had given them instructions on exactly what to say, and they just sent the copied text. So his denial didn't change anything. The fact is, he's already tried to corner me, but it just didn't work, and now he's using a different tactic. Then he tried to steer the conversation away and started complaining about how hard it had been for him the last couple of days, making it seem like our marriage was coming to an end. He started crying right after putting it on and said that life would never be the same without me, that he was always thinking about how it could be fixed. It was pretty fake anyway, but the tears were already too much. I didn't feel any sympathy for him, and I said the first thing that came to mind after he told me how he wanted to fix everything. I said that maybe I would change my mind about the divorce if he promised that he would never see Fiona again. And that's really it. Asha embroidered it. He stopped crying almost immediately, and we both froze in silence, waiting for who would speak first. Just so you know, I had no intention of staying married to him at all, regardless of his answer. Even if he had said that he would break off the relationship with Fiona, I would have left anyway. But of course he didn't say that. Instead, he started arguing that I was being unfair. He started the same song again, which I had heard in every argument about their friendship, that she was his oldest friend, that she was like a sister to him, that he couldn't leave her, especially now that she was already going through a difficult ordeal, which would be cruel. But leaving me his wife, whom he swore an oath to, means it's okay. I got tired of listening to his excuse for why he has to continue being friends with Fiona, and I interrupted him. I said that was why I was leaving. Even when he had a choice between staying with me or keeping his friendship with Fiona, he chose her. So now, he can't even complain that I didn't give him a chance or that I went overboard. I was right about everything, and he had nothing to say to that. He just got up and left. Now, all that remains is to wait for the official procedures to begin. And the third update. It's been a few weeks since the last update, and today we met for the first time in court. According to the laws of our state, we are required to wait at least 6 months before the end of the divorce. After the meeting, my husband came up to me and said he was ready to wait all these 6 months if it would help me get back to him. I'm just blown away that he's still trying to get me back, even though we haven't seen or talked in weeks. I actually thought that we had nothing more to talk about since it had come to a divorce, but he still spoke up and tried to establish contact. I asked if he was still living with Fiona, and he couldn't answer. We just stood in silence. I rolled my eyes and was about to get into the car when he said that Fiona could not return to her parents because her mother was unbearable and blamed Fiona for the divorce because she was supposedly blamed for not being able to have children. That's why she moved in with us first, and then with his parents. I knew I probably should have felt sorry for her, but to be honest, it was very difficult to feel compassion for a man who always made me feel like a jerk and eventually became the reason for my divorce. I told my husband, already sitting in the car, that Fiona had a lot of other friends, including single ones, who would gladly take her in. He just doesn't want to admit that there's something wrong with their friendship. We're getting a divorce because of her. But he's still not ready to accept the obvious and admit that it was absolutely unnecessary to put her up with us. We had another fight, and it just proved what an idiot I'd been all along. I can't believe I even thought about giving our marriage another chance. This relationship cost me too much, friends, nerves, and a lot of money, because Fiona lived with us for free, and now I also have to pay a lawyer. It's just crazy how much I was willing to forgive just because I love my husband, and he didn't even love me enough to admit that settling Fiona with us was a mistake. He's been very direct when it comes to her, and I think it's good that we're getting a divorce. Now he can finally be with the woman he really loves and stop wasting my time. I really hope that he will finally understand this and stop chasing after me. Update 4 in short, something completely crazy happened. I still can't believe that my husband said such terrible things about Thean. We only saw each other a few days ago, and I didn't expect him to show up again so soon. But yesterday he came to finally admit that he was wrong, and that I was absolutely right about everything. He apologized to me and admitted his mistakes. I honestly didn't even think I'd ever hear it. I still can't believe that he finally realized how wrong he was, and that Fiona was really always against me. I returned home from work and was quietly minding my own business when he suddenly started furiously ringing the doorbell. When I opened the door, he just flew into the house without even waiting for me to say anything, and I immediately realized that he was on edge. At first, I thought he'd come to brawl, and I already want to call the cops to expel him from my territory. But to my surprise, he started crying again, only this time for real and not for show, like last time. I dropped everything and tried to calm him down. After all, I'm a human being too. I'm not the kind of person who will stand and watch someone cry and do nothing. Even if it was Fiona herself, I would have done the same. After a while, he came to his senses a little and told me that he had taken the day off and stayed at home all day because he was depressed because of the divorce. And then Fiona came into his room to comfort him, but instead she started flirting with him. This was something she had never done before. He tried to push her away, saying he couldn't get it, but she tried to snuggle up to him. And that's where he put the boundary. He realized that I'd been right about her all along, and even though he'd always treated her exclusively as a friend or even as a sister, she'd been trying to hit on him all along. As a result, they had a tough fight, and Fiona accused him of driving her for us all these years. And then he took and married me. She called him a traitor, packed up her things, and moved back in with her parents. And now he's come to apologize to me and tell me that I was right about everything. He said he was sorry that he took me as his due and admitted that he didn't really deserve a woman like me, and that maybe this divorce would help him finally come to his senses. We talked a bit and clarified the situation. I realized that he wasn't lying when he said that he only loved me and regarded Fiona as a sister. It wasn't enough for me to go back to him, but at least I felt a lot better about my decisions. We're getting divorced anyway, but we're going to try to end things in a good way. I really hope that we will succeed.